This past weekend, I was hosting a performance camp, and a gentleman by the name of Brian asked me, what would be your number one recommendation for improving speed and endurance? This is an incredible question because most people think when it comes to speed, we think about speed work. When we think about endurance, we think about logging in lots of hours at a relatively low intensity. In my opinion, and I guess there really wouldn't be just, this was a kind of a difficult question for me to answer because a lot of times you'll hear me say, I feel people step over a penny they'll step over $1 to pick up a penny. And this is really important because when Brian asked me the question, and this was a triathlon workshop that we were doing over the weekend, my number one reply to him would have been biomechanics. Now, you may not be into swimming, biking, and running. You may be in a ball and stick sport. You may be in a motorsport type of thing, activity field. Biomechanics is the quickest way that you can improve your speed and endurance. Now, if you're in something like water skiing and maybe speed and endurance doesn't have the same connotation as, say, a triathlete or a professional cyclist, just please keep it in the appropriate context. When we're looking at biomechanics, it falls right into that tight umbrella of strength has to complement flexibility, flexibility has to complement strength. Now, if you have followed me for any period of time, I always use the reference of a set of railroad tracks. If I have you draw two lines on your piece of paper, one would be strength and one would be flexibility. One would be nutrition and hydration. I could go through just a bunch of parallels on things that make it equally important to be good at one thing. So for example, you want to be fast, you have to have both the strength base and an aerobic engine. If you want to be able to maintain core body temperature, it's the finite ratio between hydration and electrolytes. I could continue to show you a ton of things that are pairing. But going back to Brian's question from the workshop, I believe that when you focus on biomechanics, what you're doing is you're setting the foundation, and may catch you a little bit off guard, not only to be fitter and faster and better at your sport of choice, but to avoid downtime associated with an injury. Doing this for 38 years, I'm amazed how many people end up hurting themselves because of bad biomechanics. Now, if you go to a good physiotherapist, they're going to be able to show you some overuse injuries that are associated with what you're doing. When I'm working with my clients, if I can get a report from a physio, from a chiropractor, and or a massage therapist, those three professionals can help me identify muscle patterns before they become a problem. So when we're looking at proper biomechanics, I think that's the number one thing everybody should focus on. Most of us want to kind of bypass good biomechanics and go right into speed work. And unfortunately, that has a tendency to really hurt us. If we go into something like motorcycle racing and we're worried about going fast around the track, well, if your upper traps and shoulders are getting fatigued and you're dropping your elbows, you know what kind of damage that's going to do to you biomechanically on the motorcycle. If your legs get tired, if your low back gets tired and you sit down on the motorcycle, you know that just makes life worse for you. If you're a swimmer and you don't have good, strong shoulders, you're not able to get that nice high catch phase. Instead, you drop your elbow. Well, what you end up doing is moving that leverage point of the catch phase of the swim. It now gets shifted to another body part. And unfortunately, it's not really designed to handle that high level of torque. Now, we have a saying in the physiology world, the body is always going to take the path of least resistance. Unfortunately, that path of least resistance is normally biomechanically atrocious to the sport of choice. So for example, for a swimmer, if they're going to do the catch phase and they're going to roll into that catch phase, that requires a lot of strength and flexibility. The body's going to say, hey, that's too much torque, so let's just drop the elbow. Well, now my hand slips through the water, I lose that forward propulsion, okay? We could apply it to everything running. The most efficient runners are falling forward. Their head, if you were to draw a plumb line, goes right through the side of their knee, right through the side of their knee, goes right to the point of placement of their foot on the ground. I could go sport by sport by sport. Whether it's ball and stick, endurance, it doesn't matter. That's why I always come back to biomechanics. The quickest way to get, let's just say, faster, again, keep that in relevant terms for your sport. The quickest way for you to get better, faster, whatever the it may be, is through proper biomechanics. When we're dealing with something like football, lacrosse, soccer, something that involves acceleration, deceleration, pivot, and reacceleration, most people don't know how to run properly. They're running on their heels, which is like an e-brake, versus landing on their midfoot. Doesn't matter if you're a marathoner or you're a field athlete. You have to learn how to run properly. I could go again through sport by sport by sport where I find people, and I say it over and over again, you're stepping over $1 to pick up a penny. Now, I'm not going to be naive, and I'm not going to try to dupe anybody that may be watching this video. Yes, there's a time where biomechanics kind of get pushed, not really pushed aside, but let's say that you're working on some threshold work and biomechanics just isn't going to be optimized. I understand that to an extent, but there's that point of diminishing returns where you're throwing so much effort into it and the biomechanics are starting to fall apart that you actually go slower than if you would slow down and optimize better biomechanics. If you've worked with me at a workshop of any sport that we're associated with, I've proven that to you over and over again. Slow down to go fast. And it's because of this principal idea right here. Biomechanics, when optimized, will always result in better speed, better endurance, more power, more raw power. The physiological benefits just stack up one on top of the other. For me as a physiologist, my biggest concern is making sure that you have the least amount, preferably none, downtime associated with an injury. So good biomechanics, that's one of the big fringe benefits of it. Thought this was a great question from Brian. If you happen to have a question of anything under the sun, please do me a favor and send me an email, contact@coachrobb.com. Every day here on YouTube, we're uploading a new video answering your questions. The number of questions continues to increase every week, and I want to say thank you for that. Please like and subscribe, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.